Hello to the Dr. Kadina, and this is our research proposal. The title is The Customer Loyalty in Telecommunication in Malaysia, a study on factor influencing the customer loyalty among the university student in University of Malaysia, Sarawak. And this is the background of the study. The Malaysia wireless telecommunication industry is rapidly expanding. This is because the transition from the voice-centered to high-speed data service, and this is due to the increasing of the wireless technology usage and the rising of consumer expectation. So the market dynamics are changing, and the traditional providers must innovate to stay in the competitiveness. And over the past 20 years, the significant industry changes include the rise of the new companies and increase the mobile phone usage, with the postpaid subscriptions growing significantly. Next is the problem statement. The first is about the research gap. There is the limited research on the customer loyalty by the Malaysia telecommunication sector, and the current study is do not comprehensively address the various factors influencing the customer loyalty, such as the switching expenses, trust inertia, and the zone of the tolerance. This research is aimed to fill the gaps by providing the detailed analysis of these factors and their impact on the customer loyalty in the Malaysia telecommunications context. And the second is about the technological and regulation change. The rapid technological advancement, such as the adoption of the 5G internet and regulatory change in the Malaysia, affect and update understanding of the customer loyalty. And these changes are transforming the telecommunication structure, and this cause it is essential to explore how they influence the consumer behavior and what is the new strategies can be employed to enhance it. And the third is about the zone of tolerance. The zone of tolerance is significant as a moderating factor in the consumer loyalty, but it has conflicting the result in the previous research. Some research is considered it is crucial indicator of the customer loyalty, and while others is find its impact equivocal. So this study aims to clarify the zone of tolerance roles by examining its effect on switching expenses, trust, and inertia within the telecommunication industry. This is the research objective in this study. The first is about to evaluate the relationship between the customer loyalty and the switching expenses, and the second is about to evaluate the relationship between the customer loyalty and the trust, and third is about to evaluate the relationship between the customer loyalty and the inertia, and the next is about to evaluate the relationship between the customer loyalty and the zone of the tolerance, and the last is about to evaluating the moderating role of the zone of the tolerance in the relationship between the consumer loyalty, switching expenses, and trust, and the initials. And next is research question. And the first is, does the switching expenses beneficial the impact of the consumer's loyalty? And next is about, does the trust have the beneficial impact on the customer loyalty? And next is, does the initial beneficial impact customer loyalty? And next is, does the zone of the tolerance have an effective influence on the consumer loyalty? And the last is about, does the zone of the tolerance beneficial the impact of the relationship between trust, switching expenses, initial, and the customer loyalty? Reciprocity theory is talk about the behavioral response to perceive the kindness or unkindness. It emphasizes both distributional and intention fairness. It focuses on how the individuals evaluate the kindness and affect action based on their outcomes and the intentions of themselves. So this theory used to evaluate how individuals perceive the kindness of action based on the outcomes and the intentions. It helps to understand the customer loyalty dynamics. It provides the benefits to the telecommunication sectors. And the customer often feel obligated to reciprocate the benefits provided by the service provider and improve it will help to improve their loyalty. And this reciprocal relationship is particularly vital in the context where the immediate interaction and the transaction occur the frequently, such as in the telecommunication sector. And this theory helps the companies understand why the consumer may retain loyal even if they are not entirely satisfied. And this loyal often stem from the perceived fairness and the past benefit received from the service provider. And additionally, the theory enhances our awareness of how the service quality and the consumer interaction influence the loyalty and the retention. And for the research perspective, this theory has significant predictive capability for the human behavior and making it a valuable framework for analyzing the customer loyalty. And it provides a theoretical basis for the examine the impact of switching expenses, trust inertia, and the zone of tolerance of the consumer behavior and tolerance on the customer loyalty. This is the research framework was constructed based on the problem statement and the review of the literature. So entailing several independent variables, a moderator and a dependence variable. And this framework depicts the correlation between all the constructs under study. And this proposed the research framework was guided by the reciprocity theory as the underpinning theory. And the research framework is presented switching expenses, trust, inertia, and zone of tolerance as the independence variables, and the zone of tolerance as the moderator, and the customer loyalty as the dependent variable. Hypothesize a positive relationship between the trust and customer loyalty. Trust is fundamental for loyalty and requiring the companies to consistently honor the commitments and the serve customer interests. And third, we hypothesize the positive relationship between the initial, the customer loyalty inertia involved the habituous action driven by convenience, leading to the loyalty due to lack of the motivation to switch. And the consumer loyalty has the positive impact on the zone of the tolerance, and this is meeting or exceeding the zone of the tolerance lead to the customer satisfied and the loyalty. Next is about the consumer loyalty has the positive impact on the zone of the tolerance, and this is meeting or exceeding the zone of the tolerance lead to the customer satisfied and the loyalty. And the last is about the zone of tolerance moderates the relationship between the consumer behavior and the other factors such as the switching expenses, initial, and trust. A strong zone tolerance indicate the loyalty. So the hypothesis is moderating the effect of the zone of tolerance on the relationship between customer loyalty. And the last is about the zone of tolerance moderates the relationship between the consumer behavior and the other factors such as the switching expenses, initial, and trust. A strong zone tolerance indicate the loyalty. So the hypothesis is moderating the effect of the zone of tolerance on the relationship between customer loyalty.
Hello everyone, my name is Yo Yuan and my metric number is S6090, and today I will be presenting chapter 3 of our research proposal focusing on the methodology employed in our research on customer loyalty in telecommunication among university students in UNIMAS. First, let me start with research design. We choose the quantitative research method as our primary research method, and this method is highly suitable for handling large sample size. It is also efficient in terms of times and resources, making it an ideal choice for our study. And the quantitative method allows us to systematically gather numerical data and analyze it to uncover patterns and relationships. Next, we employ a correlational research design, which is a descriptive research style used to determine Relationships between variables. Our study investigates the relationship between several independent variables, which are switching costs, trust, inertia, and zone of tolerance, and one dependent variable, which is customer loyalty. By using this design, we aim to understand how these factors interact and influence customer loyalty within the telecommunications sector. To collect our primary data, we utilize the survey method, and we design an online questionnaire and distribute it via the Google Form platform. And this approach not only allows for efficient data collection from a large number of respondents, but also ensures standardized data collection as every respondent receives the same set of questions. Moving on to the next slide is the population and sampling procedure. Our target population is undergrad students at the University Malaysia Sarawak UNIMAS, and the total population is 13,915 graduate students, including 923 international students across 10 faculties. We selected this group due to their homogeneous financial situations, which are largely dependent on parents' money, student loans, and scholarships. And this homogeneity ensures that our findings are relevant and specific to the student demographic. In terms of sampling frame, it is defined as the database of potential respondents we aim to include in our study. Given the large size of the target population, we distribute the online questionnaire to undergraduate students at UNIMAS to collect the required data. The sample size for our study was determined using the Kerjier and Morgan table, which is known as a well-established method for sample size determinations. Based on the population size of undergrad students in UNIMAS, the target sample size was set at 375 respondents, and this sample size is statistically significant and provide a robust basis for our analysis. For sampling technique, we employ the convenience sampling method, and this technique was chosen for its cost effectiveness and time efficiency. Convenience sampling is suitable for gathering data from willing participants within our target populations, ensuring that we could efficiently collect the required information. Our unit of analysis is university students from UNIMAS who are subscribers of mobile and internet service provided by major telecommunication companies in Malaysia. This group was selected due to their high educational level, superior skills, and greater involvement with mobile phone compared to other groups. Moving on to the next slide is the research instrument development. For the development of our research instrument, we adapted measurement scale from previous study and validated them for consistency. Adjustments were made to the wording and phrasing of the question to ensure the clarity and relevant to our study context. The construct we measure include customer loyalty, switching costs, trust, inertia, and zone of tolerance. And we use 5-point Likert scale for all items in our questionnaire, and the scale range from 1 to 5, where 1 represents strongly disagree, 2 represent disagree, 3 represent neutral, 4 represent agree, and 5 represent strongly agree. This scale is widely used in social science research for its simplicity and effectiveness in capturing respondent attitude and opinions. And for the question structure, our questionnaire is structured into 6 parts. And part A is demographic profile, which consists of 10 items to gather basic information about the respondents. And part B is customer loyalty with 5 items adapted from Wu study. Part C, switching costs, including 7 items adapted from IDIN and Ozer research. And part D is trust, consists of 5 items also adapted from IDIN and Ozer study. And part E is inertia, consists of 4 items adapted from studies by Odin and Ozer, and also Barusman and Riorini. And the last part is part F, which is zone of tolerance with 5 items adapted from Wu studies. And this comprehensive structure ensures that we capture a wide range of data relevant to our research objective. Moving on to the next is the data collection method. We use both primary data and secondary data in conducting our study. Primary data refers to original data collected specifically for the research purpose. In our study, we use the survey method to gather large amount of data efficiently. The online survey was created using Google Form, and we distribute the forms through social media channel to reach our target populations. Next is the secondary data, and secondary data refer to existing information that was gathered for other purpose, but it is relevant to our study, and we source secondary data from reputable scholarly article available on platforms such as MySite, MyJournal, ERA, Scopus, WS Science, and others. Additionally, we also use the reliable website source to support and clarify the construct of our proposed framework. So by combining the primary and secondary data, we ensure a robust and a comprehensive approach to data collections. Moving on to the last slide is the data analysis method. First, we look at the data tabulations. Data tabulation involves the systematic organizations and presentation of collected data, and this process includes creating tables and charts to summarize and display the data concisely, making interpretation and comparison easier. Moving on to the next is the pilot test. A pilot test is smaller scale version of the full study used to pre-test research instrument. In our study, we conduct a pilot test with 37 respondents from UNIMAS to assess the effectiveness of our questionnaire. And this step helped us to identify the issue and make necessary adjustment before the full-scale data collections. And next one is the reliability test. The reliability test measures the consistency and stability of the research instruments, and we use the Cronbach coefficient alpha to examine the internal consistency of our survey items. A high Cronbach alpha value indicates that the items within each construct are reliable and measure the same underlying concepts. Next is the descriptive analysis, and descriptive analysis is used to describe, summarize, and transform raw data into meaningful informations. In our study, descriptive analysis included frequency distribution to outline response category and the frequency of response within each category. This method also involved analyzing the demographic data of respondents, providing an overall observations of the variable included. The last one is the statistical analysis. For statistical analysis, we use two main techniques, which is number one is the Pearson correlation coefficient analysis. This method measures the strength and direction of the relationship between two variables. And the Pearson correlation coefficient range from -1 to +1, with 0 indicating no correlation. A positive correlation means that as one variable increases, the other will also increase, and vice versa for negative correlations. And the second technique is the multiple regression analysis. This technique examines the influence of multiple independent variables on the dependent variables. And regression equation used in our study is like this, as you can see from the slide itself, where y is equal to the customer loyalty and A is constant value, and B1, B2, B3, B4 is the slope of regression line, and SC is switching cost, T is trust, I is inertia, and ZT is zone of tolerance. So by applying this equation, we can determine which independent variable have a significant impact on the dependent variable, which is our customer loyalty. So that's all from me for this chapter 3 of methodology. So thank you for your attention.